Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi Jong, and today we're going to take a look at the new Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Powder Blushes. So these are brand new. There are currently 6 shades available in the US. You can purchase them at Sephora right now, and they were just in time for the sale, which was great. Unfortunately, my shipping was delayed, so I wasn't able to get them up before the sale ended. However, we've got 7 shades total, 6 at Sephora. The 7th shade is coming soon to the Armani website, and it looks like a beautiful, like soft peachy beige shade. So I will definitely be picking that one up when that arrives. These retail for $38 US. Let's go ahead and start off with some swatches. Then we'll do some demos and talk about the details. And then of course we have some comparisons. Now, one thing I do want to note about this packaging here, it does have the color number on the back. However, the name is not on there. So you probably want to shop more through number versus name. The opening here is a click. You can see the little Armani logo here. So you just want to lift that up. We do have a mirror here as well as the little tape sticker, which I always have a hard time getting those off. So this is the first shade here. This is 30 Offbeat. And so this is the lowest one numerically. But the 7th shade coming is number 10. So there will be a light kind of peachy beige. So this is Offbeat. You can see this is kind of a, it's not really peach. It's definitely more orange. It's more of a soft, almost a tangerine orange, just a little bit more muted. And you can see here that these don't have any shimmer, but they do have a bit of a sheen. So there's a little bit of like, almost like a light reflecting type of property to them. So they're not gonna be a flat matte, but they're not gonna have any like glitter particles or anything in them. So that first shade was 30 Offbeat. This is 40 Mania. And you can see that this one definitely has a bit more red in here. It's more of a persimmon kind of shade here. And let's just buff a little bit of that out. So you can see this is going to be kind of a soft red, and it's a pretty neutral red. It doesn't really lean too warm or too cool. If I had to pick one, I'd say it runs slightly warmer than cooler, but it's really close to neutral. I think it's a very pretty shade. And this is great for deeper complexions. For lighter complexions, you really want to go in with a very soft, light hand for this. It's definitely a pigmented shade. Next, we have 50 Euphoric. So this is the only one of the shades that is going to be a shimmery, glowy shade here. So you can see that this is going to have that sparkle in there. There's definitely going to be shimmer particles in here. You can see that this is going to be kind of a warm pink with gold sparkle, gold shimmer in there. Very, very pretty. And you can use this as a highlighter if you want something subtle. Have it on as a highlighter today, and I'll show you that demo in a few minutes. Next, we have 51 Amore, and this is my personal favorite out of the shades so far. And you can see that this is going to be a soft pink. This is going to be neutral, leaning slightly cool, but it's a really pretty well balanced pink. I think it's a very beautiful soft pink. And when you kind of buff this out, you almost get a tinge of like a red-based lavender to it. Definitely not blue tone, but there's almost like a faint tinge of like lavender in there, or violet. Just very subtle. This one here is 52 Ecstasy. This is what is on my cheeks right now, along with the shade 50 Euphoric as a highlight. And this gives you a nice pop of pink. This is going to be a cool tone pink. You can see it's more like a subdued fuchsia. Really beautiful. You can see you definitely have some blue tones to this one. And last up, we have 60 Mystery. And this is going to be your berry plum. You can see it's kind of a warm berry shade. You've got like a little bit of almost like a rust mixed with a berry in there. And these are going to be the 6 shades that are currently available. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the cheek swatches and some demos. Now, before we begin, let me just show you in all of the swatches on the right side, I am using this very soft squirrel hair brush. This will give you a very soft application. This is the Kyredo Kiwami cheek brush. And so this is going to be very similar to the Fude Japan cheek brush, as well as the original SUQQU squirrel hair cheek brush. And then on the left, to kind of give you a bit more of an intense look, we have the Sonia G Smooth Buffer, which is going to be a bit more dense and kind of buff that product in, build up the color a bit more. So let's take a look at those swatches and talk about some details. So as I mentioned, there are 7 shades total. The 7th shade is coming soon to the Armani Beauty website, but the other 6 are currently available for purchase at Sephora. So these blushes, we have 3.6 grams of product, and there is a 2-year shelf life for these, and they are made in France. They retail for $38 US, and according to Armani, these are a silky powder blush that softly drapes the skin with a luminous flush of color so natural that it looks like it's coming from within. Powered by Armani's luminous silk filler technology, these blushes smooth skin while delivering a dose of color in a subtle glow finish. Ultra finely milled for a texture that applies like silk, the formula features spherical light reflecting pigments that work to evenly bounce light off the face for a soft focus glowy effect. The formula is buildable and blendable for mistake-proof application and lasting color that layers beautifully with other makeup. So I've been testing these blushes out for a few days, and I'd have to say that their claims, I think, are pretty accurate. There's definitely kind of this luminous look to the skin, even though it's almost a matte blush, yet it's not quite a satin matte. It's almost more of matte with a little bit of pearlescence to it. Definitely no like glitter particles aside from the shade 50 Euphoric, and I think it really does give you that beautiful glowy look. Now, is it really a blurring product? I do think that there is a blurring effect with these blushes, but I wouldn't say that these give you significant blurring. Let me know what you guys think as you're seeing these cheek swatches, but I do think it's kind of a subtle blurring effect, but really the benefit here is the way that the light hits off of these and gives you a little bit of, that lit from within luminosity, and I think that's really beautiful. Now, I have applied these blushes with several different brushes and brush types right now, and I have to say that they all perform beautifully. They're very buildable with all of them. Even the lightest shades can build up to a certain extent. The deeper ones you can definitely soften. So I do think that there is a nice range of colors. That being said, there are a couple shades that are really deep that if you're fair skin or light skin, you're going to want to be very cautious with. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have a couple shades that are very light that just aren't going to build up super strongly. Now, as I mentioned, the shade 50 Euphoric, that is going to be our shimmery blush. That's the warm pink with the gold shimmer in there. And that one, if you're looking for a subtle highlight, you could definitely use that as a subtle highlight because it's still more blush than sparkle. It's not going to be overpowering as a highlight. It's also one that you can easily mix into the other shades to create a bit more of a shimmery blush with the other shades as well. I think it's really pretty. And that's going to, the actual blush base, that pink base, is about a light to medium intensity. So I feel like because of that, it makes it really blendable with any of the other shades if you choose to make them a little bit more shimmery by mixing the colors. Now, with some blush formulas, sometimes the technique really makes a difference as to how the blush looks on the skin. And I would have to say that these are very versatile. So whatever your favorite method is, whether it is swirling the brush or, perhaps buffing it in or patting it on, I feel like these perform equally well with all different techniques. And I think that is definitely something that has going for them because this kind of gives you a little bit of the effect that the Sisley Phyto blushes give you on the skin, which are one of my personal favorites, but those really look best buffed into the skin, in my opinion. That's how you're going to get kind of that luminous effect from them. You want to buff those in. Whereas these, you can get that effect and it's going to have a very similar final look to the Sisley blushes without having to do that. So, all of the applications are going to give you that great look. So let's go ahead and move on to some comparisons and let's start with the Sisley. This is Sisley shade number 5, Rosewood. This is my personal favorite from the Sisley blushes. And we're just going to put that right here. You can see this is going to be a little bit cooler in tone. It just has a little bit more of a rosy vibe to it. And again, formula-wise, these Sisley blushes, these are going to be more of a gel to powder consistency, and they really work best being buffed into the skin to give you kind of that soft, luminous glow. Now, when I first saw 50 Euphoric from Armani, it made me think of this shade from Sisley. This is number 4, Golden Rose. So this is also going to give you, a bit of a sheen here. Let's go ahead and put those side by side. But you can see that the Sisley has a lot more of that gold shimmer in there. And it's very, very finely milled, so it almost just looks more like a gold reflect. And the base shade is more of a peachy pink. So it's definitely going to be warmer in tone. Overall, if you're looking for shimmer, the Sisley is going to be more intense for the shimmer than the Armani. But I do think they are similar, but the Armani is going to be a little bit cooler in tone. My personal preference is the Armani over the Sisley one because this can be a little bit overpowering, and I like the subtlety of the Armani. This is number 3, Coral. And let's go ahead, we don't have the best coral here. We'll put it between shade 30 and 40 there, but you can see it doesn't quite go with either of those shades. It's almost a mix of them, but it has a little bit more of shade 40. It really, it's not a comparable shade. This is probably my second favorite shade in the Sisley range. And this one here is number 2, Rosy Fuchsia. And this made me think of shade number 52, but you can see that the Sisley is going to be more intense. It's also going to be a bit warmer. It's more of a strawberry pink versus this more blue-based pink. Very beautiful. These are both really beautiful shades buffed into the skin. And, I think they both work for a variety of skin tones. And shade number 1, Pink Peony. Let's go ahead and see how this compares to shade 51. You can see it's going to be significantly warmer. It's more of a carnation pink, whereas we have more of a cooler tone rose. And as I mentioned, you don't really see lavender in it, but it's almost as though there's a little bit of lavender in the base there. And yeah, so those are going to be our Sisley shades in comparison to the Armani. Let's move on to the Gucci blushes. Now, the Armani shade 60 Mystery made me think of this Gucci number 6, Warm Berry. This was the first thing that came to mind when I saw that one. Let's go ahead and put this one down here. You can see that it's got the warmth that you have in the Armani, but this actually has a little bit more brown in there. There's a little bit more warmth and it's a little bit deeper. Whereas in comparison, you can see the Armani is going to be ever so slightly cooler, and you can see a little bit more of that reddish berry tone to it versus the Gucci. Now this is shade number 5, Rosy Beige. We don't really have anything comparable to this in the Armani, but the closest is going to be the shade 60 Mystery. But you can see that the Gucci is going to be softer, has a little bit more of like a nude mauve tone to it, and it's just going to be lighter overall. Shade number 4, Bright Coral. And this is one of my favorites of the Gucci shades. Go ahead and put this here. But you can see that it's going to be more of a true coral, whereas this is definitely going to be more of a tangerine peach, more of a persimmon. This really doesn't quite go with any of those. And this one here is number 3, Radiant Pink. And let's go ahead and put this here. Again, it doesn't quite have a shade match. It's going to be closest to the base color in 50 Euphoric, but it's still slightly warmer than that, and we do not have shimmer in the Gucci. Next, we have 2 Tender Apricot, and this is going to be much lighter, but our closest match is going to be shade number 30, Offbeat from Armani. You can see, however, though, this is going to be more of like a yellow-based mandarin orange versus a tangerine, which is going to be, just a little bit more vibrant orange. And this is number 1, Silky Rose. So let's go ahead and take a look at this one. I think the closest might actually be our base color to 50 Euphoric. That is the closest. Again, Armani is still going to be slightly cooler in tone. All right, so these are the Sisley and Gucci comparisons. I'm just going to remove those swatches briefly so we can go ahead and look at some other ones. But before I do that, I just want to talk a little bit about that Gucci formula. If you haven't tried those are going to be more of a traditional powder formula. However, it's very, very finely milled. You don't get a lot of kick up from that. You are going to get a blurring effect on the cheek. They blend out beautifully. They are all matte. You have a subtle luminosity with them, but the Armani definitely give you a little bit more radiance from them. Between the two, I have to say they're both great. I really love shade 5 Rosy Beige from the Gucci, but my preference is actually going to be the Armani formula because that luminosity I think is just really a special feature of these because it doesn't have the shimmer, but you're still getting that light reflection that you would get from a shimmery blush without looking glowy or sparkly. All right, so I know so many of you guys have been asking me for comparisons to the SUQQU Melting Powder Blush formula. So let's go ahead and take a look at these. Now, first of all, I want to start off by saying that I feel like these Armani Luminous blushes, they are not going to give you quite the same look as the SUQQU. The SUQQU truly looks melted into your skin. However, I feel like these Armani ones are kind of the closest that I have come across. These and the Valentino are probably the closest in comparison to formula-wise. However, yeah, I think these are going to be a little bit closer. So let's take a look at what I have that are the closest shades. So this is shade number 104. This is one of the limited edition ones that just recently came out. We're going to put that right up here. And you can see this is going to be a bit more, it has a bit more pumpkin orange. There's a little bit more brown in there versus that more vibrant, brighter orange of a tangerine. From the same launch, this is 103. This is their pinky coral shade. Let's go ahead and put that right there. And you can see that this is a little bit more pink than the persimmon shade, but it does kind of look similar to the buffed out version of shade number 40. This is shade number 10. This is one of my favorites of these, and they were actually part of the permanent line, but they were sold out all the time. And you can see that's not quite a great match, but it's almost in between 50 and 51. Again, these don't have any shimmer, but they have that luminosity. The luminosity is still a little bit more intense in the SUQQU than it is in the Armani, but they're similar. You know, they're close. And this is number 7. And let's see how this compares to shade number 60. Let's put that down there. You can see this is going to be warmer, has more of a brick tone to it. This is number 6, another permanent shade. This is kind of a bright orange here. And you can see that's going to be brighter than the shade number 30, Offbeat from Armani. Similar in tone, but this is just going to be a little bit brighter. Has a little bit more of a neon quality to it. And then this is number 2, which was their first kind of rosy pink shade here. And this is going to be a bit warmer, but it's kind of like a warmer version of 51. So as I mentioned, formula-wise, these have some similarities. It's probably the closest that I have seen so far. The next closest is actually the Armani, or Valentino to the Armani. And I have 2 shades to compare. Now, texturally, when you touch the SUQQU has more of that, it feels more of that like gel to powder texture like the Armani. The Armani feels a little bit creamier per se. The Armani actually feels a little bit more powdery. But when you're looking at the finish on the skin, I feel like the SUQQU Melting Powder Blushes and the Armani Luminous Silk Blushes have a close appearance on the skin. Whereas the Valentino has another beautiful shade. This is 9, Poudre, by the way. It has a beautiful finish on the skin as well, but it's going to be a little bit more intense. It doesn't have that same luminosity. It's more of a... It doesn't have that same level of light reflection. So this is 9 Poudre. You can see that this is kind of a nude peach shade. Doesn't quite match any of the Armani. The other Valentino shade I have, this is I really love this. This is one of my favorite blushes overall. This is shade number 3. And let's see how that compares here. You can see this has a hint of lavender in it, but it's definitely going to be more blue base. It has a bit more light reflection than the Poudre. It has some sheen to it, but when I'm talking about the light reflection from the Valentino versus the Armani and the SUQQU, it's a little different. This is almost more like super finely milled shimmer, that type of light reflection, versus whatever SUQQU and Armani did to kind of just have that lit from within. It's almost like the pigments are encapsulated, but you can still, like, it's encapsulated with something more sheer, so you can still see some of that glowing from within, whereas these are a little bit more naked pigments, essentially. Now, I just want to take a look at a few more blushes. We're going to look at the Tom Ford Duos. This is number 2, Explicit Flush. Let's look at this orange shade here. And I have to say, I love the Tom Ford ones. I feel like they're not really talked about that much anymore, but these are one of my favorite, you know, blurring blushes. So this is going to give you a nice powder texture. The texture similar to the Armani. This is going to give you a bit more of a matte blurred look on your skin. So you don't have that same level of luminosity that you get with the Armani, but you do get a little bit more blurring. You can see that this is going to be more of a coral shade. Doesn't quite go with any of those. And let's take a look at this one from Cherry Blaze. This is number 4. Let's just see how that compares. Here, we'll squeeze that one in. And yeah, that's going to be more red, but definitely more orange than shade number 40. Let's take a look at these 2 shades from Aflame, and let's see how they compare here. So we got this light pink. That is going to be a pretty cool light pink. Doesn't match any of the Armani. And then this deeper one, let's put that right there next to shade 40. I think this deeper one is a slightly lighter version, essentially. Oh, actually, they're even closer than I thought. So I think there's a slightly more rose in the Tom Ford, whereas a little bit more neutral red in shade number 40 Armani. But those are going to be really, really close. This is number 3, Peach Poison. Let's just take a look at this orange as well. See how this goes. We'll squeeze that in right there. Definitely much more orange. And last up, let's take a look at the deepest shade in number 5, Sundrunk. See how that compares down here. You can see that this is going to be more red, less berry. It's almost more of a burnt red compared to having those cooler berry tones that shade 60 Mystery has in Armani. And the very last blush I want to look at, this is one of the new Bobbi Brown brightening blushes. This is blushed pink, and I just wanted to kind of swirl all those shades together and compare that to the shade 50 Euphoric. You can see that this is going to be cooler in tone. The champagne shimmer that we have in here is also cooler in tone compared to the warmer gold. So overall, I have to say I really love these new Armani Luminous Silk Powder Blushes. And, you know, the first time I tried it on, I was like, oh, well, these are nice. And then I did the wear test. I saw how it performed. I really liked it. I thought it was great. But, you know, I wasn't wowed or anything at that time. I wore them a bit more, a few more days, and I have grown to absolutely love them, particularly just this luminosity that you get. You know, it's a matte blush, but you have this light reflection in there. It's not really pearly. It's not really shimmery. It's something different from other luminous blushes. And I think that's what I like about it. So that's kind of the key factor for these for me. And I also think that they are fairly priced. You know, you're looking at $38 US for 3.6 grams of product. You know, for a luxury beauty blush, that's definitely, you know, in my opinion, reasonable. Some of the blush prices have gotten really kind of up there. You know, if you're looking at the Sisley blushes, which I love, again, they're going to give you a kind of a similar finish on the skin as well, but not that same luminosity. Those are, I don't even know, are they 60 or 65 now? I think they were 60 when I bought them. I think they're like 65 or something now. I might have that off. But, you know, the prices here have really been going up for luxury beauty. And I feel like Armani was able to come out with a stellar product that is still at a reasonable price point for luxury beauty. And it just performs really well. So I'm very happy with these. I can't wait to pick up shade number 10, which again is coming soon to the Armani site. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you very soon. Please let me know all your thoughts down below in the comments, and have a wonderful day.